you've just finished your last performance
Yeah.
of your run at the Butterfly Club. So, Rose Callaghan, how did the run go? How do you feel right now, having done your last show?
Yeah, I feel good. I feel like I've still got a few shows left in me because I'm just, doing a short run, like a 10-night one. So you get into the swing of things and then it's sort of finished. But usually I do like a 22-show run, and then by the end of that you're kind of like, So I didn't do any other festivals this year because I have a baby and it's hard and COVID and everything. Usually I do a few festivals before Melbourne, but not this time.
How has the show evolved over the run from show 1 to show now?
Not much at all, really, because I did some trial shows in regional areas, and then the first show was a bit rough, and I spent the whole next day fixing it, and then it's been like really good. And yeah, I haven't haven't changed much. Usually in my shows I have a lot of crowd work in them, and they're very like loose sort of, and sometimes like they just change a lot, but this one has like sort of kept its form, and I put a lot of work into like the structure of it and setting things up, and then having these payoffs at the end. So I was happy with how that ended up going.
Well, just firstly, congratulations on a very engaging narrative that you present.
Thank you.
Where everybody gets on board at the beginning, and you do carry them all the way through.
Thank you.
So congratulations on what appears to be a very well-developed, thoroughly written and redrafted show.
Yeah.
Can you just tell me a little bit about how much work you've put into putting this show together?
Well, a lot, because I was working with my director from, I don't know, maybe August last year, so there was a lot of like conversations and talk about like the themes and everything, and because I couldn't tour it like I normally would, I had to focus way more on the writing of it. And then I couldn't do as many gigs in the lead up because like I have a baby and stuff, and then daycare germs, so we were like sick and I wouldn't be able to do spots, but I was doing spots around. And then some of the material I did when I was pregnant, and because I was in Sydney at the time, we were lucky we didn't have as much lockdown at the time, so I was like a bunch of that stuff I'd worked up when I was pregnant, so there was that. But yeah, there was a lot of writing and just a lot of conversations about there was a lot of messages I wanted to get through, and I thought I was worried I wouldn't be able to fit them in, or that I'd just be like crowbarring, jamming these messages in. Or when I talk about it, I'd talk about it in a serious way, but it's like that's not what I'm like on stage. But I felt happy that I managed to get like a lot of those things through in the show.
How long have you been doing comedy now?
9 years.
How, in essence, would you characterise the difference between this show and your prior style of stand-up?
Well, this one had like audio-visual stuff, and it had like a song in it. So yeah, it was definitely different because it's a much more like tight show. I really love doing crowd work and stuff, but it changes the energy a bit of the show, and sometimes people get so into the crowd work that when you get back to the material, it can be really up and down, but this show's been really consistent. But this is definitely my favourite show. I think it's the best show that I've done, but I don't know, they're always different. Like the last show I did was like, it was a difficult subject matter to get across, and I had to develop it. It developed a lot over time, and I had to change it heaps before, a bit into Melbourne. Then I was like, okay, I'm happy with it. But I was in Adelaide and I was in Perth before that, and yeah.
What were the main things that you wanted to get across with this show?
Well, I wanted to talk about birth trauma, but it's a hard thing to get across, and so I realised I didn't have to tell like the whole story. I could just hit these key points, and people did understand what I was getting at, and I want to talk about like the inequality of gender roles when you're parenting and stuff, and just a lot of things to do with that, and how stressed out like parents get and all that sort of thing, and just kind of how unfair it is, and also how people like lump mums into this one category, and they sort of lose their sense of identity. And then obviously I integrated my mum's film into it, and so I guess I wanted to talk about like what was similar in our experience and what was different. Yeah.
Were you consciously keying in to what appears to be a growing discussion, highlighting the fact that still in 2022, men have a very limited understanding about what women go through when they give birth and when they're raising a kid? Your child is 15 months old.
Yeah.
It seems that men get an easy ride, and this has been a target for other comedians. Were you aware of that, or was this just something that was coming straight from the heart?
How can you not be aware of it? But I don't really think that the conversation has changed that much. There's so much stuff that happens when you have a baby, and when I see what other women are going through and how hard they have it, that I'm like, whoa, no one's talking about this. But ironically, I have a way better deal than a lot of people do, and I'm the one that doesn't do as much in my partner's really organized, and I've got ADHD, and I'm like, what's going on, so it's funny because I'm complaining about that, but I'm not experiencing it. But if I was experiencing it, I wouldn't be able to do the show because I'd be stuck at home looking after the baby, and I wouldn't be able to do stand-up.
Do you think that men have a limited understanding, or do you challenge that? Because the show seems to...
Everybody does. I think it's a societal thing where people make jokes about oh, I'm so stressed, or people say stuff oh, women are just better at this sort of stuff, and it's well, they're not better, they've just spent more time doing it, staying at home, and the default is stay at home for a year with the baby, and so you just get used to how to put them to sleep and whatever, and then everybody sends all the stuff to you, when you're pregnant, you're the medical person, and the baby comes, it's still gets sent to you. Daycare calls me, and I'm I never answer my phone, it's always on silent, and I'm disorganized, so it's it's all put on me, so there's all this stuff of all the knowledge and being in charge of all the baby decisions and stuff that happens as well.
Can you tell us about the dynamics of playing to a fairly small room?
It was pretty small tonight compared to it's been a weird year with ticket sales with COVID and stuff, but yeah, it's definitely a different energy. It's not woo, it is when there's a really packed crowd, but I don't know, people don't know what the other shows are so you just have to remind yourself that they it might feel less laughter or noise to me, but they don't know what other shows are
So what are your intentions with the show now?
Well, usually I would write a new solo show every year, and I think COVID's changed everybody's the way they assess things, and it's before female comedians just didn't have babies really. I think we all just were can we do both things? And then COVID happens, and you just go why am I fuck it, I'll just do it, and hopefully it works out, But it's it's too hard to go touring all the time. I can't do 5 festivals, in the festival season I would before, because it would be too much on my partner to expect him to look after the baby, or if I'd have to take the baby away, it would be annoying. But so I think now I'll do more and it makes sense because you spend so much time writing a show, it's and then just to start again the next year on a new show, all that work you put in and all that stress just to reboot over and over. So I think I'll just spread out the festivals over a couple of years, I'm doing Sydney Comedy Festival, and then maybe if I can do another one towards the end of the year, and I'd like to do Brisbane Comedy Festival, and I'll do Perth next year probably, and then also just I want to do shows for I can do day shows for parents with little babies and stuff. I can do a show in a freaking community centre or something, and I think there would be a lot of demand for that. And in Sydney, I asked if I could do a crybaby session, so that Sydney Comedy Festival's put that on sale, which is awesome. It's a 5 o'clock show, at the factory theatre, and the factory floor, which is like big, is 130 seats, and it's accessible so people can bring prams and babies and stuff. And so I think it'll be way easier at, like, because my show's at 10 p.m. here, it's like pretty hard to get new parents to come. Weirdly, turns out that demographic doesn't want to. It's very late at night. It's late at night for my friends. They're like, I'm in my late 30s. I've got work tomorrow. This is a big task, you know.
You wanted an earlier show?
It was there wasn't like there weren't many venues this year. Like, it was really hard to get a venue. And normally I've done festival managed venues in the past, but like when I had offers, it was like there was this on the table, and then there was some other offers at better times, but like at different venues, and so I just had to weigh it up. And so I knew it was a risk, but I wanted to do. I pictured the Butterfly Club in my head when I was like writing the show, so I just thought, like, you know, I just had to do it and hope, you know, that it worked out. So
you also mentioned in the show that you have ADHD, which you've been quite open about. Rose, can you just tell us what it is like putting together a show such as this, which is an hour of talk, straight to the audience? I did not see you consulting notes. Is it harder for someone with ADHD?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I take medication, so that helps. But also, like, having a director and kind of having to have this really regimented approach, because I have a kid, like, I have windows of time and I have to like use them. Like, before I'd be like, oh, I've got to do my show, and then I'd just sit in bed hungover all day or whatever and be like, oh no, I'm not working on my show. So it's like every bit of time I have to get from somewhere, you know, like my partner's looking after the baby, or my mum is, or, you know. So, and then having a director and just having those like weekly check-ins and discussing everything, yeah, I think that helps. But like, I don't know, it's hard to remember all that material. You have to structure things in a way that like makes sense, kind of, because also I'm not the sort of person that's like memorizes a script, you know. It has to make sense logically in the way that it flows. So yeah, but also the show is sort of in chunks, you know. It's split up by like visual stuff, so that does help you remember it as well. Yeah.
Can you tell me anything about the funding process that you went through? The show is funded. Can you just tell us a bit about that? How much form filling was involved? Was it hard? I have a producer as well. So my producer, Betty, Betty Moxie, she helped so much with everything, so I couldn't have done it without her. But I did apply for the first one myself, and that was like 5 days of work, like when I was still looking after the baby, and so it was like it was literally like 5 days full time. I think I worked on it, but I just tried to do it really, and that was the City of Melbourne grant. I didn't get that, so I think but then my producer, then she would fill out all the stuff, but we had the core materials. So I think we applied for like 5 grants in the end, and ended up getting the Creative Victoria and Regional Arts Victoria grant, which was really good, and that helped a lot, because I had to pay people to help me with the show because I don't have enough time because I have a kid, you know. And so, yeah, and part of that was I already wanted to do regional shows to work up the show because I couldn't do festivals. So I did shows in Ballarat and Castlemaine as part of that as well. So, yeah, but it's like so much work. But once you've done one, at least you've done the stuff, and then you replicate it and change it over time. We got there in the end. Did you need the funding in order to put the show on, or could you have managed without funding?
I could have, but like it's a big risk with COVID, and like, you know, yeah, it's just I did spend a lot of money on the show, and like just because of COVID, yeah, I spent it doesn't quite cover the cost probably, but it would have been very difficult to justify laying out all that money if I didn't have a buffer, you know, especially knowing like it could all get cancelled, like if I got COVID.
Well,
and I don't know what people are going to do like next year, because everything that's happened, it's like crazy. People cancelling their shows, and yeah, So
Well, for what it's worth, from the evidence I saw tonight, it's money well spent.
thank you.
Okay. Now, you just quickly just about the houses you've been getting. Have you had packed houses? How did tonight compare?
Tonight was pretty low.
You had about 15 people in there?
Yeah, maybe something
Okay.
like that, yeah.
Have you had full houses? Or is this...
Yeah, on the weekends it's been busy, but Mondays, Wednesdays, it's like those are the nights that people aren't like, they're always quiet nights in the festival, but when it's at 10 o'clock, it's like, and there's lots of COVID, it's a hard sell. So, yeah, but the last few nights have been, pretty busy.
And you had fans in
Oh,
tonight.
yeah, those guys, they always come to see me. They're the best.
They are?
Yeah.
Who are the Rose Callaghan people?
Generally, I don't know. I guess sometimes I just get people that come to the show and I pick on them in the audience, and then they they just follow me on social media and they always come to the shows, and yeah, it's nice. I feel like they're my friends that come, but it's all different because those guys are I don't know, way older, and I think they're from Queensland or something, and they come down for the festival, and they're these really blokey guys, and they love female comedians, and they come to see me, they're like, Nikki Britton, we love her. I don't know, they're so funny. I really like them.
Can I just ask you a quick question about technique? Because you have a very, very funny sequence in there where you're talking about constipation in the hospital. And you create some very, very funny word pictures without getting scatological. You're talking about something pretty disgusting, but you seem to choose your words very carefully so it doesn't,
Gross
become
people
just
out. Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah,
So can you tell me how deliberate that was, how hard you worked on fashioning that narrative?
Yeah, well, I think the first time I told that story, I just really I wrote some stuff down, but I kind of freestyled it, and it just came out very smoothly, not like it did in the actual story. But yeah, and it was one of those ones that the energy was really good the first time I told it, and then I'd tell it again and people would get a bit grossed out. So I kind of just change. Yeah, I don't say the words poo really. I kind of avoid doing that, and there's a lot of metaphors and stuff, and so people will come along for the ride without being oh, this is gross, So,
And you really work in advertising?
yeah, I am working in advertising. Yeah.
Or a copywriter?
How did you know? Yeah, I'm an editorial lead, so I'm an editor and a copywriter. So I've always had I didn't have a day job for 5 years. I was just touring and doing all that stuff. But I freelance, and I've always had another career that I can go to, because it's way easier to get money doing that stuff than it is getting one. Every gig that you do is a new job that you have to get, and it's sending an invoice for a little bit of money here and there. So I find it good, keeps me kind of sane to do other work at the same time. And now I'm working 4 days a week. It's it is good to have that structure. Yeah.
Do you think boomers are kind of getting let off easy with comedy?
Oh, I mean, I think there's, I don't know. Yeah, they're not a huge target, but I like to make some boomer jokes a bit, and people get on board. They really do, yeah.